after dying from overwork. I became the least favored consort Xian in the Great Qi dynasty. When I opened my eyes, my gorgeous silk nightgown was half-slipped, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. I let out a wolf whistle. This figure is even better than the abs I worked for with my gym membership. Just as I was wondering how long it had been since the dog emperor visited, a little cannonball came rushing in, hugging my leg and wailing, "Imperial Mother. Father gave last month's stipend to noble consort Zhuang. He's added even more requirements. I want it too." I looked down, staring at my biological son whose eyes were filled with academic pressure. I pinched his puffed-up cheeks. "Have some ambition. Broaden your horizons and just go snatch it. I am Wen Chan. In my past life, I was a gold medal project manager who worked my peers to death. In this life, I just want to be a salted fish slacker. But my son, Zhao Che, happens to be a natural-born overachiever. Mother, I must finish preparing these books today. Mother, I'm going to the martial arts field. I won't return until I've done 100 horse stances. Mother, noble consort Zhuang's son stole my homework again. To go take credit in front of father, I picked my ear, rolled over on the recliner, and said lazily, "What's the noise about? If the sky falls, your father is there to hold it up. What's the panic?" Zhao Che stomped his feet in anxiety, his little face turning red. "Mother, how can you be so unmotivated? This is the Cold Palace. The Cold Palace." He pointed at the half-dead parasol tree in the yard, denouncing my depravity. I followed his finger and looked over, nodding, It is quite cold. Later, I'll have your father turn up the underfloor heating. In my previous life, for the sake of an apartment, I hustled from the moment I woke up until I closed my eyes. In the end, I hustled myself straight into the crematorium, living a second life. And in this imperial palace where food and clothing are provided, whoever wants to hustle can hustle. Anyway, I'm not doing it anymore. My ultimate goal is to take this highly competitive little bean of a son and train him to be the happiest, most useless slacker prince in the world. Then, I'll find a scenic spot and happily lie flat. Zhao Che, seeing that I was unmoved, his eyes welled up, tears the size of beans rolled down. "Mother has changed. You used to always encourage me." My heart softened. I sat up and beckoned him over. He thought I was going to comfort him. Pouting, he ran over, and I scooped him into my arms, pulled a piece of candy hidden in my sleeve, and stuffed it into his mouth. "Son, studying hurts the brain. Eat something sweet to nourish it." Zhao Che, with the candy in his mouth, protested inarticulately. "But the Grand Tutor says playing destroys one's ambition." "What does your Grand Tutor know?" "Chair, remember this. The thing this palace needs least is being clever and hardworking. Look at your imperial brothers. Which of them isn't a shrewd schemer? If you fight them, not even your bone fragments will remain." I pointed to my head. "To live long, you must rely on this." Zhao Che licked the candy, half understanding. "Rely on my brain? No, rely on learning how to make others think you have no brain. Come, mother will teach you your first lesson. How to slack off openly right under the Grand Tutor's nose." I dragged him stealthily to the study. The Grand Tutor was nodding his head, lecturing on the principles of ruler and subject. I whispered to Zhao Che, "Watch closely. Mother will only teach you once." I told him to take a deep breath. Then I suddenly pushed a tree over, making a loud thwack. The Grand Tutor's lecturing stopped abruptly. The gazes of all the princes and princesses shot over. I gave Zhao Che a look. He understood instantly. He rolled his eyes and fell straight backward. I calculated the timing and lunged forward, catching his small body. I cried out to the heavens, "Oh no. My chair, what has happened to you? It's all your mother's fault for being useless, making you suffer with me. Malnutrition. To think you'd faint during class. Imperial physician, summon the physician quickly." The entire schoolroom fell into chaos. While lying in my arms, Zhao Che quietly opened one eye and gave me a thumbs up. "Imperial Mother, you are truly a genius." My heart sank. Oh no, I overdid it. How did I end up teaching him to admire me? This slacker training plan seems to have gotten off to a rocky start. The consequence of faking a faint was that my cheap husband, the current Emperor Zhao Heng, brought a grand procession of physicians to descend upon me. In this cold palace, I was sitting with my legs crossed, telling Zhao Che to weave things out of grass. Mother's IQ is so high. In the future, if the Grand Tutor asks a question, I'll just fake a faint. I knocked his head, frustrated that he wasn't meeting expectations. Ambition, that's the lowest level of strategy. If you use it too much, it won't work. The highest state is making the Grand Tutor get a headache just by seeing you. So he'll actively tell you to get lost. How do I make his head ache? Ask him questions he can't answer. Like, why does 1 + 1 = 2? Zhao Che fell into deep thought. Just then, the shrill cry of a eunuch came from outside the courtyard. "His Majesty arrives." My hand shook, and a sunflower seed shell almost got stuck in my throat. No way. Isn't this dog emperor busy with 10,000 affairs every day? How does he have time to come to this godforsaken place of mine? I quickly pushed Zhao Che onto the bed, covered him with the quilt, and whispered instructions. "Remember. Pale face. Weak breathing. Whatever he asks you, just cough." Zhao Che nodded nervously, and his eyes instantly looked the part as he closed them. I tidied my clothes, put on a piteous and frail expression, and went out to greet him. Zhao Heng wore a bright yellow dragon robe. He was tall and elegant, his face expressionless. But those eyes were terrifyingly sharp. Noble consort Shuang followed behind him, looking at me with delight in my misfortune. I pay my respects. Rise. Zhao Heng's voice held no hint of mockery. I heard Chair fainted in the study. My eyes immediately turned red, and I pulled out a handkerchief to wipe away non-existent tears. Reporting to your majesty, it's all my fault for being incompetent. I didn't take proper care and made Chair suffer. Noble consort Zhuang spoke up sarcastically from the side. Sister, what are you saying? Everyone knows the supplies for your Yongning palace are distributed on time. Could it be that sister used the funds for something else and mistreated the sixth prince? This woman was pinning a crime on me right away. I looked up, staring at Zhao Heng with teary eyes. Your majesty, believe me, even if I were to starve to death, I would never let Chair suffer a single bit. Then I hesitated on purpose, looking like I wanted to speak but stopped. Zhao Heng frowned. Just what? It's just that Chair is such a competitive child. Seeing the third prince and the fourth prince receive your praise, he was anxious in his heart. He studied day and night, and that's how he wore out his body. I couldn't talk him out of it, and my heart aches. With these words, I praised the other princes, complimented my son's diligence, and established myself as a loving mother. Perfect. Noble consort Shuang's face stiffened, clearly not expecting me to say that. Zhao Heng walked into the inner hall, looked at the unconscious Zhao Che on the bed, and let the physician step forward to take his pulse. The physician mimicked the motions for a long time, then stood up to report. Reporting to your majesty, the sixth prince is in no grave danger. It's just that his vital energy is a bit unsettled, likely caused by overthinking. A few days of rest will suffice. In my heart, I gave the physician a thumbs up. What a sensible guy. Zhao Heng was non-committal, but his gaze fell on the grasshopper at the bedside. That grasshopper was woven so lifelike, much better than the failed one in Zhao Che's hand. He picked it up and asked calmly, was this woven by Chair too? My heart jumped, and I quickly said it was just something I made for fun while I was bored. Zhao Heng turned to look at me, his gaze carrying a hint of inquiry. You certainly have quite a lot of leisure time. His words were ambiguous. I couldn't gauge his meaning, so I could only bow my head in a submissive manner. Since Chair is unwell, he doesn't need to go to the study for the time being. I see that your Yongning palace is far too quiet. Pass my decree. Send that pile of jade rui from the warehouse to Yongning palace, and add 2 more maidservants to serve here. Having said that, he turned and left, not even giving noble consort Zhuang a second glance. Noble consort Zhuang's face was deformed with rage. She glared at me fiercely, and flicked her sleeves as she followed him out. As soon as they were gone, Zhao Che immediately sprang up from the bed, hugging my arm and shaking it. Mother, you're amazing. Not only did you fool father, but you even earned a pile of jade rui. I, however, couldn't feel happy. My cheap husband's mind is incredibly deep. The way he looked at me just now didn't seem like he was looking at a discarded consort in the cold palace. It seemed like he was suspicious of something. Ever since the dog emperor visited once, my Yongning palace became lively. People came with gifts, people came to curry favor, and people came to sniff out the truth. The threshold was nearly worn down, but I saw no one. I had the new maid, Xiao Tao, block them all. My lady, this is bird's nest sent by noble consort Shuang. Pour it out and feed it to the dogs. I find her things dirty. My lady, this is from consort De. She invites you to admire chrysanthemums. Tell her I'm allergic to chrysanthemums. My lady, you'll offend everyone if you do this. Xiao Tao looked troubled. It's better to offend them all, so they don't bother me. Remember, our goal is to keep a low profile. To be salted fish. To be an insignificant, transparent nobody. I said lazily. Zhao Che was practicing calligraphy on the side. He looked up and said seriously, Mother, you're wrong. I raised an eyebrow at him. We are no longer transparent nobodies. Father gave gifts and exempted me from classes. Everyone in the palace is watching us now. What we need to do is make them think we are a doe who can't be helped. A complete joke. I looked at him in surprise. What a teachable kid. This boy finally understood a little. Well said. In that case, what should we do? I slapped my thigh. Chair put down the brush, walked to my side, and lowered his voice like a little spy. Mother, we must act foolish, foolish to the core. We looked at each other, and simultaneously revealed villainous smiles. And so, the vibe of Yongning Palace began to turn bizarre. While other consorts were studying zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, or poetry and songs, I was in the yard leading Zhao Che in cricket fighting, while other princes were buried in books, practicing political essays. Zhao Che was on the roof flying a weird-looking kite he made himself, while other mothers and sons were scheming for advancement. We were by the pond in the imperial garden, competing to see who could skip stones the furthest. The entire palace treated us as a joke. Did you hear? Consort Xian is teaching the sixth prince how to play with mud. They turned themselves into mud people. That's not all. I heard the sixth prince ask the grand tutor yesterday. Why is the sun round? Why is the moon also round? But why isn't he himself round? It made the grand tutor blow his top. When these rumors reached my ears, I was extremely satisfied. This is right. This is exactly the effect I wanted. However, despite all my calculations, I didn't count on the logic of the dog emperor, Zhao Heng. This afternoon, I was teaching Zhao Che how to use bamboo to make a simple water gun. Zhao Heng came uninvited again. He dismissed everyone and stood alone in the yard, watching us mother and son in a sorry state, our clothes covered in water stains. My heart thudded. Oh no, I played around too much. I quickly pulled Zhao Che to bow. Zhao Heng didn't tell us to rise, but instead walked to the water gun we just finished, picked it up, and looked. What is this? Reporting to your majesty, it's just a little toy I made out of boredom. I answered through gritted teeth. Father, this is called a water gun. It's very fun. Zhao Che, however, looked up and said with pride. As he spoke, he even wanted to demonstrate. I was so scared I covered his mouth. My silly son. Your father is the emperor, not a playmate to play in the mud with. Zhao Heng's gaze stayed on my face for a few seconds. Then he suddenly said, Wen Chan, do you know your crime? Here it comes. He's finally going to strike. I know my crime. I have failed in educating my son and led the sixth prince astray. Please punish me, your majesty. Oh, what crime do you have? His tone was flat, revealing no emotion. I shouldn't have led the prince into mindless play. I shouldn't have. For a moment, I was at a loss for words, not knowing how to continue. Lying. Father, it's not mother's fault. It was I who wanted to play. Zhao Che also knelt beside me and whispered. Zhao Heng looked at us mother and son and remained silent for a long time. Long enough that I thought he was going to order us to be dragged out and beheaded. When he suddenly laughed. It was a very light, brief chuckle. But it made his whole person soften. Rise. When did I ever say a prince cannot play? I was stunned. This script isn't right. How is this water gun made? Teach me. That afternoon, the two most noble males of the great Qi dynasty stayed in my quiet courtyard and played with water for an entire afternoon. I stood to the side, watching as a large patch of Zhao Heng's dragon robe got soaked, with a few water droplets on his face. Yet he laughed like a child. I was completely lost. Just what does this dog emperor want to do? Could it be that he wants to slack off just like me? Whether the dog emperor wanted to slack off, I didn't know, but I knew. My slacker life was completely ruined. Since that water playing incident that afternoon, Zhao Heng came to Yongning Palace more and more often. Sometimes he'd bring memorials to read, claiming he wanted a change of scenery. Sometimes he'd bring pastries to give to Zhao Che. More often than not, he'd do nothing at all. Just move another chair beside my recliner, lying down just like me, staring blankly at the clouds in the sky. The entire harem was in an uproar. They say the empress smashed her favorite set of colored glass cups in rage. Consort feigned illness and didn't leave her room for a month. All sorts of open and hidden provocations flew into Yongning Palace like snowflakes. I was beyond annoyed. Zhao Che, think of a way to stop your father from coming. I handed a half-eaten apple to my son. Mother, I think father is quite nice. He even taught me to play chess. Zhao Che took the apple, crunching it loudly, and said indistinctly. I felt a tightness in my chest. A traitor. He was won over so quickly. Did you forget our ultimate goal? It's to be salted fish, to lie flat. Your father comes every day like he's clocking into work. How are we supposed to lie flat? But isn't lying flat beside His Majesty still lying flat? That makes so much sense. I actually couldn't argue back. That day, noble consort Zhuang came again. She was dressed up extravagantly and brought a crowd of people, formidably blocking the gate of my palace. Sister Xian, you certainly put on a grand air. I've invited you several times, and you've avoided me every time. Today, I want to see for myself just what kind of fox-like charms are hidden in your Yongning Palace that have snatched His Majesty's soul away. She was about to barge in as she spoke. Noble consort Zhuang, you have quite a temper. Must be an endocrine imbalance, right? Should I write you a prescription? To clear heat, detoxify, and regulate things? In my past life, I studied Chinese medicine quite a bit for health. What nonsense are you talking? Slap her mouth. The old wet nurse behind her immediately stepped forward and raised her hand. My eyes turned cold. Just then, Zhao Che squeezed out from behind me, spread his arms to protect me, and shouted fiercely, "Don't bully my mother. Sixth Prince, your mother has offended her superior and disregarded palace rules. Today, I am here on the orders of the Empress to teach her what rules are." She even brought up the Empress. It seems she's determined to cause me trouble. I was thinking of how to quietly escalate this, so it would ideally reach the Emperor, to let him see how annoying his wives are, so he wouldn't come bother me anymore. A cold voice sounded from behind noble consort Zhuang. Oh, I didn't know. When the Empress gained the right to punish my consort, Zhao Heng had arrived at some point. He was standing not far away, his face so dark it looked like it could drip water. Your Majesty. What audacity to run wild at the gates of Yongning Palace, arrogant and domineering. Showing no respect for the sovereign. From this day forth, you are demoted to a concubine and grounded for 3 months. Copy the palace rules 100 times. Arrogant and domineering. Showing no respect for the sovereign. From this day forth, she is demoted and grounded for 3 months. Copy the palace rules 100 times. Oh no, she is now concubine Zhuang. She slumped to the ground. Her face ashen. After dealing with her, Zhao Heng turned to look at me. His expression softened a little, but still carried some displeasure. You just let yourself be bullied like that? I was afraid of causing your Majesty trouble. The subtext was, see? It's all because you keep coming here, that you brought me so much trouble. Zhao Heng seemed to understand my subtext. Not only was he not angry, but he actually chuckled. In the future, if anyone dares to be insolent at Yongning Palace, there's no need to report. Just have the 6th prince beat them out. If they get hurt, I will take responsibility. The entire place was deathly silent. Zhao Che looked up at his tall father. His eyes sparkling with the light of admiration. I face-bombed. It's over. This isn't just a betrayal. He's defected straight to the enemy. My slacker training plan was declared a total failure. Ever since Zhao Heng let out that bold statement about being responsible for the beatings, Yongning Palace became quiet, but my mind was even more chaotic. Because Zhao Heng came even more frequently. Sometimes he even stayed the night directly. Of course, it was just staying the night. He slept in his bed. And I slept with Zhao Che in mine. 3 people in one room. The atmosphere was bizarre yet harmonious. He really seemed to just come here to relax. Reading memorials, reading books, occasionally being pestered by Zhao Che for chess, or watching me research some strange and quirky things. For example, I've recently become obsessed with cooking. While the palace imperial meals are exquisite, they are too bound by rules. And I get tired of them after a while. Relying on the food documentaries I watched in my past life, I started experimenting. One day I'd make beggar's chicken. The next day dongpa pork. And the day after that, I whipped up a hot pot. Zhao Heng and Zhao Che, the father and son duo, became my most loyal foodies. Mother, this is so delicious. It's spicy, numbing, and so satisfying. Zhao Che ate until he was sweating profusely, his little mouth bright red. Although Zhao Heng didn't say a word, his chopsticks never stopped moving. He ate refinedly. His movements elegant, but his speed was not slow at all. Looking at this father and son, I suddenly had an illusion. It was as if we really were a family of 3. As soon as this thought popped up, I startled myself. No, Wen Chan, you need to stay sober. He is the emperor. The emperor of everyone under heaven. He can eat hot pot with you today. And watch fireworks with another woman tomorrow. You must not lose your heart. If you fall in love, you lose. Just as I finished my mental preparation, I saw Zhao Heng hand over a peeled shrimp. What are you thinking about? Your face is all scrunched up. No. Nothing. I just think your Majesty shouldn't come to my place so often. Zhao Heng put down his chopsticks, wiped the corners of his mouth with a napkin, and asked indifferently, why? I am of lowly status, and have lived in the cold palace for a long time. I am truly unworthy of your Majesty's favor. Your frequent visits are bad for my reputation, and can easily cause unrest in the harem. This was the most euphemistic eviction notice I could think of. Zhao Heng looked at me quietly for a moment. Those deep eyes seemed to see through all my disguises. Wen Chan, do you think I come here to plot something against you? I wouldn't dare. You do dare. From the first time I came to Yongning Palace, you've been on guard against me, avoiding me. Everything you've done, and everything you've said, is meant to push me away. He stood up and walked toward me, leaning down slightly, his shadow looming over me. Tell me why. His breath fanned across the top of my head, carrying a faint scent of ambergris. Just like the man himself, it was domineering and powerful. Backed into a corner by him, I could only look up at him. Our eyes met, and I saw my own reflection in his eyes. Small and a bit flustered. Could I tell him? Tell him I come from another world? That I've died once? That I'm scared and don't want to struggle anymore? I don't want to compete for favor. And I don't want to live with my head on the line every day. I couldn't. I took a deep breath, ready to make up some excuse. But Zhao Che suddenly burst out crying. Father, please don't be mean to Mother. Mother is doing this for my sake. She's afraid I'll be made crown prince like the first brother, and then fall into the lake and drown. The words of a child are innocent, yet they pierced through the cruelest truth of the palace. The former crown prince was the empress's legitimate son, and Zhao Heng's eldest son. 3 years ago, he fell into the water and died. Everyone knew it wasn't an accident. The air became deathly silent. Zhao Heng's face turned deathly pale in an instant. The death of the former crown prince was a taboo in the palace, and a thorn in Zhao Heng's heart. With one sentence, Zhao Che had pulled that thorn out, bloody and raw. My heart nearly stopped from fright. I quickly covered Zhao Che's mouth, and knelt down. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. The child is speaking nonsense, it shouldn't be taken seriously. Zhao Heng didn't speak. He just stood there, his body somewhat stiff. After a long while, he waved his hand. His voice raspy. Rise, all of you. He turned around, facing away from us. I couldn't see his expression. I do not blame you. Che is telling the truth. I was stunned. He actually admitted it. In the royal family, sometimes living is harder than dying. My sons, from the moment they are born, have no control over their lives. He turned back, his gaze landing on Zhao Che. Wen-chan, I know what you're worried about. I am also afraid. Afraid that my sons, for the sake of that supreme position, will kill each other and end up like my eldest son. At that moment, I suddenly understood. He came to Yongning Palace frequently. Not to plot. Not on a whim. And certainly not just to show favor. Here, with me. He was looking for something he had never possessed. The warmth and peace of an ordinary family. Watching me and Zhao Che play. Relaxing and getting messy with mud. Watching us make a mess of our days. Yet filled with laughter. What he envied was precisely this simple joy that he couldn't give to any of his sons. A part of my heart suddenly softened. Your Majesty. My mouth opened. But I didn't know what to say. In the future, do whatever you want. I will protect you. After saying that, he turned and left. His back actually looked somewhat desolate and lonely. I stood in place, feeling conflicted. Zhao Che tugged at my sleeve and whispered, Mother. Did I cause trouble? I snapped out of it, touched his head, and pulled him into my arms. No, you didn't cause trouble, you just told the truth. From that day on, Zhao Heng didn't come to Yongning Palace again. He seemed to be truly fulfilling his promise, giving us our peace. However, the daily rewards, food, clothes, and supplies, kept coming in a steady stream. They were even better than the allotments for the Empress's palace. The tide in the harem shifted once again. No one dared to look down on me anymore, and no one dared to pick a fight. But those invisible, prying, and jealous gazes became even more numerous. I continued to lead a salted fish life with Zhao Che, but my state of mind was different from before. Occasionally, I would think of Zhao Heng's lonely back, and the helplessness in his voice when he said, I am also afraid. This man was an emperor, but also a father. He carried the weight of the entire world, yet he couldn't even manage the simple task of protecting his son's happiness. It was a bit pitiful. A month later, the palace held the annual autumn hunt. All the princes had to participate. Looking at Zhao Che in his hunting gear, his little face flushed with excitement, I couldn't help but sigh. Remember, safety first, competition second. Don't rush to the front. Find a secluded spot to hide, and come out when it's over. Don't worry, Mother, I understand. Our goal is just to participate. Zhao Che nodded vigorously. I smiled with relief. A child worth teaching. Truly a child worth teaching. Once again, I underestimated fate's sense of humor. When the autumn hunt ended, Zhao Che hadn't hidden at all. Instead, he became the center of attention. He was carrying a silly roe deer that had accidentally killed itself by running into a bird trap he'd set. Surrounded by a crowd, he arrived before Zhao Heng. Zhao Heng looked at the unlucky deer, then at the bewildered Zhao Che, and fell silent. The entire field of royalty, officials, and princes fell silent as well. Father, sixth brother cheated. That wasn't hunting at all. He just got lucky. Only Consort Zhuang's son, the fourth Prince Zhao Run, jumped out and pointed at Zhao Che. I didn't. It ran into it itself. Zhao Che retorted, sticking his neck out. Watching this absurd scene, I covered my face. How did my salted fish son get so lucky? Silence. Zhao Heng shouted coldly, ending the farce. He stepped down from the high platform and personally approached Zhao Che. He walked a circle around the unlucky deer. Tell me, how did you hunt this? Zhao Che glanced at me. I desperately signaled to him, telling him to stay low-key and play dumb. Instead, the boy cleared his throat, puffed out his chest, and said loudly, Father, Mother taught me that hunting is for fun, not for killing. So, I didn't use a bow and arrow. I just set some small traps in the forest. I wanted to catch some rabbits to make roasted meat for Mother. I didn't expect this fellow to be so blind as to run right into it. His words were so full of humble bragging and green tea vibes that I nearly choked. When did I ever teach him that? I clearly taught him to hide and stay out of trouble. A wave of whispers broke out around us. Unheard of. Catching a roe deer with a trap? The sixth prince's luck is just too good. After hearing this, Zhao Heng didn't get angry at all. Instead, he laughed out loud. What a line. Hunting is for fun, not for killing. Well said. He patted Zhao Che's shoulder, his eyes full of admiration. Not bound by convention. Blazing a new trail. That is truly my son. Attendants, reward the sixth prince with my Zhuifeng bow. The Zhuifeng bow. The very bow Zhao Heng used in his years of warfare. It was a symbol of supreme honor. As soon as he said this, the crowd erupted. The first and second princes' faces changed instantly. They looked at Zhao Che with eyes that seemed ready to spit fire. Consort Zhuang was so angry her lips were trembling. Zhao Che, holding the bough that was taller than him, was completely stunned. He looked at me for help. What could I do? I could only kneel down. My heart was full of bitterness. I had spent all my effort trying to raise my son as a harmless mascot. Yet this dog emperor had personally put him on the chopping block. Now, he's become a target for everyone. After the autumn hunt, I locked Zhao Che in his room for an intensive session of thought education. Zhao Che, have you forgotten our original goal? Mother, I haven't forgotten. But father was asking me questions I didn't dare not answer, Zhao Che said aggrievedly. You could have said you just got lucky and found it. But I was telling the truth. Forget it, forget it. What's done is done. There's no use talking about it now. From today on, you are not allowed to step out of Yongning Palace. Stay home and reflect on your actions. I decided to give it the cold treatment. As long as we stayed low-key and on the sidelines, people would eventually forget about this. However, the tree wants to be still but the wind won't stop. A few nights later, Yongning Palace suddenly caught fire. The flames were fast and fierce, engulfing half the palace almost instantly. I was woken up choking on thick smoke. My first reaction was to find Zhao Che. Che. I rushed into his room. He was terrified too. Sitting in the corner of his bed, trembling, I covered his nose and mouth with a wet cloth, picked him up, and tried to run out. But the fire was too big. There was no way out. The beams on the roof were crackling as they burned, ready to collapse at any second. Just as I was in despair, a bright yellow figure kicked down the door and rushed in against the light of the flames. It was Zhao Heng. Wen Chan. He grabbed me, wrapped me and Zhao Che in his cloak, and shielded us in his arms. Don't be afraid. His voice, amidst the crackling of the fire, was exceptionally clear and exceptionally steady. A burning beam fell from the ceiling, crashing straight toward us. I screamed in terror. Zhao Heng suddenly spun around, using his back to take the hit. I only heard a muffled groan, but the arms holding us didn't loosen in the slightest. He used his own body to provide us with a chance to live. When we finally escaped the sea of fire, my mind was still blank. I only remembered the shocking stain of blood on his back. Holding Zhao Che, I knelt before his dragon bed. For the first time, I felt a bone-deep fear and heartache. Zhao Heng was unconscious for 3 days and nights. During those 3 days, the entire palace was shrouded in a dark cloud. The empress took charge, and along with several elder princes, temporarily stabilized the court. But beneath the surface, undercurrents were surging. The first and second princes were in frequent contact, and officials in the court were making moves. Yongning Palace was burned, and Zhao Heng was severely injured. It all happened too conveniently. Everyone knew. This was an attack aimed at me and Zhao Che, or rather, aimed at Zhao Heng. A long premeditated assassination. I became the center of this storm. The empress summoned me. In the solemn cunning palace, the most noble woman of the Daqi dynasty had shed her usual majesty. Her face was full of fatigue and worry. Consort Xian, I know you don't want to compete. Her first sentence left me stunned. Before His Majesty lost consciousness, he mentioned you. He said you were a smart person, who knew how to protect yourself, and how to protect Che. But the situation is different now. They won't let you go. If you keep backing down, it will only make them think you are weak and easy to bully. Next time, it won't be a fire, it'll be poison. Her words were like a basin of cold water, chilling me to the bone. She was right. I kept thinking about retreating, about hiding, but I forgot that in this man-eating palace, retreat doesn't bring peace. It only brings more brutal slaughter. Zhao Heng could protect me once or twice, but he couldn't be there every second. I could only rely on myself. What I can do is help you watch over Che, to ensure his safety. The rest is up to you. I walked out of Cunning Palace, and looked up at the gray sky. My mind had never been clearer. Being a salted fish is for people who have the right to lie flat. Right now, I don't have that right. I returned to our temporary residence. Xiao Tao met me anxiously. My lady, you're finally back. Just now, people from the first and second prince's palaces came. They said they were here to visit you. Visiting was just a pretense. They were here to test the waters. Where are the things? Xiao Tao pointed to a pile of gift boxes on the table. I walked over and opened one of them. Inside was an exquisite pearl hairpin. I picked it up, twirled it between my fingers, and then snapped it in two without hesitation. My lady, Xiao Tao was startled. Return all these gifts to them, unopened. Tell them Yongning Palace has suffered a calamity, and I fear our bad luck might offend the two princes. I wanted everyone to know that I, Wen Chan, am not a soft persimmon that anyone can squeeze. That night, I made an even bolder decision. I changed into simple clothes and went alone to the residence of the first prince, Zhao Yu. He was the eldest of all the princes, and the most ambitious. He was the biggest suspect in the arson case. I didn't announce my arrival. Instead, I bribed a servant at his mansion and snuck in quietly. Zhao Yu was in his study having a secret talk with his closest confidant, the son of the Minister of War. I hid outside the window and heard their conversation clearly. Father was seriously injured this time. The imperial physicians say even if he wakes up, his health will never be the same. Your Highness, this is our chance. As long as we remove the stumbling block that is the sixth prince, and then find a way to make the second prince make a mistake, the position of crown prince will be yours. That Wen-chan has a bit of cleverness, but a woman can't stir up much of a storm. Keep a close eye on her. If necessary. Zhao Yu made a throat-slitting motion. Hearing this, the murderous intent in my heart could no longer be suppressed. I pushed open the door and walked in. The two people in the study were shocked and flustered when they saw me. Consort Xian, how did you get here? Zhao Yu was both surprised and furious. I didn't answer him. Instead, I walked straight up to him, took something out of my sleeve, and slammed it onto the table. It was a small military tally engraved with the word royal. It was the tiger tally used to mobilize the 3,000 imperial guards outside the city. When Zhao Yu saw it, his face instantly turned pale. Worse than a dead man's. Where did you get that? His voice was trembling. Has your highness forgotten the last time you visited me at Yongning Palace? You accidentally dropped it. Of course, he hadn't dropped it. I had taken it a few days ago. Amidst the chaos from a spy he'd sent to Yongning Palace. I was betting he wouldn't dare speak of it. What exactly do you want? Zhao Yu stared at me fixedly. I don't want anything. I just want to teach your highness a lesson. I picked up the tally and tossed it in my hand. I leaned in close to him and said in a voice only we could hear. To sit in that position. Arson and murder are not enough. A brain is a good thing to have. I hope you have one. After saying that, I threw the tally back to him and turned to leave with a flourish, leaving him in his study, his face flushing between pale and green like a poisonous snake with its throat grabbed. I knew I had completely provoked him, but I also knew that from tonight on, he wouldn't dare act rashly because he didn't know how many more of his secrets I held. The day after I returned from the first prince's mansion, Zhao Heng woke up. The first thing he did was summon me. When I walked into his bedchamber, he was leaning against the bed, his face still pale, but his eyes had regained their clarity. He dismissed everyone, leaving only me. You went to Zhao Yu's mansion? He asked, his tone calm. I wasn't surprised that he knew. I nodded. Your audacity is not small. I was simply forced into it. If I didn't save myself, I'm afraid I wouldn't have lived to see your majesty wake up. He was silent for a moment and suddenly reached out his hand to me. I hesitated for a moment, but still placed my hand in his palm. His hand was a bit cold, as he gently held mine. Wen-chan, I have implicated you. I thought that by not pushing you into the spotlight, it would be the best protection for you. But I didn't expect that instead, it would make you their target. Your majesty is overthinking it. I want to name Chair as the crown prince. His words were shocking. I looked up abruptly, staring at him in shock. Please reconsider, your majesty. Chair is young and has a mischievous nature. He cannot handle such a heavy responsibility. A heavy responsibility can be taught and a mischievous nature can be tempered. It's not his intelligence I value, but his pure heart. My empire does not need a cruel, scheming heir. I need a monarch who understands joy and knows mercy. He looked at me and said word by word, and these only you can teach him. I was speechless. I had exhausted my mind, trying to keep my son away from this struggle for the throne. And yet, his own father was personally going to place the world's heaviest shackles upon him. This was simply the world's biggest irony. Wen-chan, help me. And help yourself and Chair to pave a true path to the throne. Zhao Heng tightened his grip on my hand, his tone carrying a hint of pleading. I looked into his deep eyes, seeing myself reflected within them. I knew I had no choice. From the moment I stepped into the first prince's residence, I was already in the middle of it, and could no longer escape. I would either take Zhao Che to the thorn-covered peak, or be torn to pieces by the watching wolves. Fine, I heard my own voice. Unusually calm. I promise you. From that day on, I was no longer the slacker salted fish who only wanted to lie flat. Consort Xian. I began to appear frequently in the court's view, utilizing the power Zhao Heng gave me, and the knowledge and methods I brought from the modern world, paving the way for Zhao Che step by step. I helped the Ministry of Revenue solve a long-standing embezzlement case. I used just 3 spreadsheets and a set of modern accounting methods. I presented to the Ministry of Works blueprints for improved water wheels and plows, greatly increasing agricultural efficiency. I even convinced Zhao Heng to open the Imperial School for Women, allowing those noble young ladies to learn to read and write. Every single thing I did was a precise slap to the faces of those old conservatives, earning for Zhao Che and myself unprecedented prestige. In the harem, I still kept to myself, but no one dared to look down on me again. The first and second princes were suppressed by my various means, until they couldn't even raise their heads. One was found to have embezzled military funds, The other was exposed for ties with remnants of the previous dynasty. They were confined one after another, and the court was refreshed. Everyone could see that this once unknown consort Xian was the most deeply hidden expert in the palace. 6 months later, Zhao Heng's injuries healed. On his birthday, in front of all the civil and military officials, he personally handed the imperial seal to the 8-year-old Zhao Che. My 6th prince, Zhao Che, is pure by nature and kind-hearted, worthy of being the heir. Today, I decree his investiture as the crown prince. At the same time, he issued a second decree, Consort Xian of the Wen family possesses both virtue and talent, worthy of being the mother of the nation. I name her imperial noble consort to assist the crown prince, wearing my magnificent court robes. I held the oblivious Zhao Che and knelt in the golden throne hall to receive the official's homage. At that moment, my heart was as calm as still water. I knew this wasn't the end, but a new beginning. My salted fish life had finally become a dream. Becoming the imperial noble consort and assisting the crown prince sounded infinitely glorious. But only I knew that these days were more exhausting than being a project manager in my past life. The business this little crown prince had to handle every day was playing chess with his father, who wanted to retire early, fishing, and cricket fighting, while I not only had to manage the affairs of the harem, but also help him review memorials and deal with ministers who were smarter than monkeys. I seriously suspect that this dog of an emperor, Zhao Heng, just found an excuse to legitimately outsource the work to me. This night, after I finished the last memorial, I was so tired I collapsed into my chair, unwilling to move. Zhao Heng walked in casually, holding a bowl of bird's nest soup. My beloved has worked hard. Come, have some bird's nest to nourish yourself. Your Majesty sure is leisurely. I rolled my eyes at him and said crossly, one must fulfill the duties of their position. He didn't feel guilty at all. Instead, he sat down beside me with a smile, personally scooped a spoonful and brought it to my lips. My current duty is to accompany the crown prince and the future empress. Who is your future empress? My face turned red, and I turned my head away. Who else could it be but you? He said as if it were a matter of course, conveniently pulling me into his arms, his chin resting on the top of my head. He nuzzled me gently. His embrace was warm, with a reassuring scent. I struggled a bit but didn't break free, so I simply gave up and found a comfortable position to lean against him. Let me ask you, were you calculating against me from the very beginning? I spoke slowly. I wouldn't call it calculating. It should be called having an eye for talent. He pondered for a moment. The first time I saw you at Yongning Palace, as you were scolding Zhao Che, I felt you were different. Other women only think about how to climb up, but you only think about how to lie down. Other concubines teach their sons to fight for power, but you only teach your son how to slack off with a clear conscience. At that time, I thought, this woman is really interesting. Later, I discovered more and more that you're not actually lazy. You just live more clearly than anyone else. You know what's important and what can be discarded. You've taught Chair very well. He is kind, happy, and empathetic. These are the most important qualities for a monarch. So you used me. I was still a bit annoyed. It was cooperation. I give you and Chair a lifetime of stability, and you help me guard this vast empire. We are the best partners. He corrected. As he spoke, he took something out of his robe and pressed it into my hand. I looked down and saw a crooked ring woven from grass blades. The craftsmanship was so crude, it was worse than the grasshopper Zhao Che wove back then. You wove this? I was stuck between laughter and tears. Yes, I studied for a long time. He seemed a bit embarrassed. Wen Chan, I know you don't care about the position of empress, nor do you care for this wealth and glory. There's not much I can give you. I can only give you this. He straightened my hand and solemnly placed the grass ring onto my ring finger. I can only guarantee that for the rest of my life, as long as you are here, I will be here. If you want to lie flat, I will lie down with you. If you want to watch the world, I will guard this world for you. Under the lamp, his gaze was so tender it could melt water. My heart began to race uncontrollably. This man is the emperor, the supreme ruler. He couldn't give me the promise of one life, one couple, but he was willing to lower himself for me, to learn to understand my world and respect my pursuits. This might be the most sincere love he could give. I sniffled, my eyes feeling a bit hot. It's so ugly. Though I complained, my fingers gripped the ring tightly. Then I'll have the Internal Affairs Department use the best jade to make you a new one. No, this one is fine. I leaned into his arms and closed my eyes. To hell with the salted fish life and the lying flat plan. With this man around and my silly son here, anywhere is home.